urban than every other nations because they were not allowed to have land property. For many decades they always preferred a moneyed interest to landed interest, and because of that they were more urban, and urban people are on average a little bit more wealthy. So the Jews are just a little bit more wealthy than most of the nations, that's true. They cooperate well because they have the, especially religious Jews, have this sort of gentleman's agreement that they are believing in Jehovah, in Yahweh, and they are keeping their saint word. But recently in Antwerpen, for instance, in Belgium, the Jews were to some extent expulsed by the competitors from Tamil Nadu and from other very strict religious communities from India, because their pacta sunt servanda among the community is even more strict and even more reliable. So you know how important to keeping the word is in the business of selling diamonds, right? Okay. They are highly educated. That's true because they to the Reformation time, the Jews were the only one who had the religious intellectual parents, and those parents could have babies who also were to be highly educated. And whereas in Catholic families the priests are not supposed to have families. So this changed during the Reformation. That's why the contrast in education in 19th century, for instance, between the Jews and non-Jews, the Goys was higher than in Protestant countries, or the Protestant with the countries with dominance of Protestantism, because the Protestants also would have been pastors, for instance, and priests, and have families and babies and educate them. Before this massive educational system kicked in, the Jews really have some power over the different communities. And the Jews also preserved the system, or the knowledge of the Byzantine and Greek and Arabic medicine and medicines, whereas the Christians have this tabooistic approach to the human body. So for many centuries, up to the 17th century really, the second half of the 17th century, the Christian doctors were able to speak much Latin, but they didn't really know how to deal with fever. Whereas the Jews knew just a couple of words of Greek, no Latin at all, but have this good practical approach to medicine. That's why they were preferred as doctors, unless, of course, somebody had an anti-Jewish prejudice. And during the 19th century even, because of this taboo approach to the human body shared by most of the still very Christian Europeans, the Jews were the majority on medical faculties at the universities of Berlin or Vienna or something, and the same with chemistry. And the other thing, the only thing that didn't allow the situation to be created in which the Jews would be like a total majority on these faculties, at those faculties, was the quota system, because that it shouldn't be more than this percentage of Jews accepted. Okay, so the Jews, because they were living in diaspora, so they have already, when the banking and the trade systems of Italy and Netherlands was started, the Jews already were living in diaspora, so they have some sort of advantage over the Goy, over the Goys when it comes to trade. So this is if they rule over the world or not, or they control the world or the world business or something, it's hard to say, but it certainly seems so and seemed so, because they had a diaspora in every state, so they didn't have to waste any time to create the trade factories like the Dutch had to do, like the Italians had to do, and so on and so on, and the Germans, for instance.